The biggest thing that I have done as a solopreneur has been getting myself in the same rooms as high achievers, high level thinkers that have done what I want to do.
He was pronounced dead at the scene of a cycling accident when he was a teenager. But today, he's redefining what it means to be truly wealthy. And he's doing it alongside one of the most influential voices in personal finance. Welcome back to The Root of All Success. I am your host, the real Jason Duncan, and this is episode number 343. My guest is Nathan Barkocy, real estate developer, investor, and creator of something called the True Wealth Philosophy. After surviving this near-fatal cycling accident, which we'll talk about in a few minutes, he got a traumatic brain injury as a teenager. After all that, he transformed that moment into a complete redefinition of success. And he's now co-authoring a book with Sharon Lechter, who you may remember from episode number 148 right here on The Root of All Success. And, of course, she is the legendary co-author of the Rich Dad, Poor Dad series of books. But Nathan and Sharon's upcoming book, Old Wealth, New Wealth, True Wealth, explores how to build a life of purpose, freedom, and lasting prosperity. Nathan's portfolio spans medical real estate, restoration, wellness, and education, but his mission is singular. It's helping entrepreneurs pursue wealth that extends far beyond money. Nathan Barkocy, welcome to The Root of All Success.
Well, thank you for having me. It's such an honor to be with the real Jason Duncan today.
All right, you were pronounced dead at the scene of an accident as a teenager, something that not very many people can say. So what happened and what do you remember about that moment? And we'll go from there.
Absolutely. Loaded question. So I was nationally ranked as a 16-year-old. I was top 10 in the nation as a competitive cyclist. I had my eyes set on going to the Olympics, on going to the Tour de France, becoming an internationally renowned cyclist. And I was accomplishing every step that needed to be taken to get there, right? So I was the youngest to ever win the Tour of the Gila down in Silver City, New Mexico. I think I still hold that title. And I was state champion in New Mexico. I was state road race leader in New Mexico, top 10 in the nation. I was going to Europe, right? I was going to go race. And then January 23rd of 2016, I was training with my coach and my teammate, and I got hit by a car at 60 miles an hour. So immediately upon impact, I was thrown 100 feet and sprawled out on the ground. I died on the scene. The officer at the site of the scene reported it as a fatality, and I was in a coma naturally for 2 weeks. By God's grace, I did open my eyes again, 2 weeks later, paralyzed, right? So a nationally ranked cyclist who couldn't move. By God's grace again, I was put on a medical flight up to Craig Hospital in Denver, Colorado, and that's where I learned how to live again, right? As a 16-year-old, as a nationally ranked cyclist, I would struggle to reach over and press a button to have the nurses come roll me out of bed into a wheelchair in the morning. But that was the beginning of my recovery, and I learned how to live again, right? Walking again, talking again, eating again, all of the above. So that's really where, when you're laying in bed as a nationally ranked cyclist who can't move, you really get a mindset shift about what really holds value, right? What truly holds value. And that, of course, is our time. What I always say is that tomorrow is never promised, right? So we ought to make the most of today, utilize our time now, and take action so that we can create the lives that we are called to create.
Well, when you woke up from that coma, what was the first thing you realized about the life that you had been living up to that point?
That's an interesting question, Jason. It wasn't. I don't remember waking up from the coma. I don't remember I was in the ICU for a month, two weeks of which I was unconscious in the coma, 2 weeks of which I was, I had just woken up. I don't remember waking up from the coma. My first memory is, laying in bed at Craig Hospital, needing to press that button to have a nurse come roll me out of bed. And really, I wasn't reflecting necessarily on, right, how my life had changed or what was different. I knew that I was physically and mentally incompetent, right? Physically and mentally disabled. And all I wanted to do, all I had in my mind was just to keep moving forward, right? To take the next step on the progression to recovery. And so that's all my mind really could comprehend at the time. And so, of course, now we're here. I'm running several businesses, and my mind's comprehending a lot, right? Raising two kids, being married to a beautiful spouse, and running a few businesses. So my mind's on a lot of different frequency levels now. But at the time, I was really just focused on, taking that next step and moving forward.
So you've said that experience was a quote rebirth. So walk me through how you went from being in the hospital bed to building the life and the businesses that you have today.
Absolutely. That's a great question. I think when you're in that situation, right, the hospital became my boardroom, the rehab center became my classroom, right? I needed to learn how to live again and structure my life, to the new normal, quote unquote, right? My new normal was no longer being a competitive cyclist. It was graduating high school, which I was blessed to be able to graduate with my class. And that's really difficult to do when you're, suffering from a traumatic brain injury and you're recovering at the capacity that I was. And so I needed to be able to move forward. And my mission since that time was to really help people understand the value of our time, right? And that's exactly what you mentioned at the beginning of this podcast is my mission, my passion is to help people understand the value of our time, which is true wealth, right? Freedom of time. Generosity with our time, with our assets, with our relationships, everything that we can to build the world up, right? It's a very Christian undertone, and I know how you coincide with that, and I think it really mirrors the story of Christ, right? The suffering, death, and resurrection. We all have suffering, death, and we need to pursue that resurrection in some regard. Everybody has suffering in some capacity, whether that be with a family or with finances or education, whatever it may be. But we shouldn't use that as a dead weight to hold us back. We need to use that as fuel to launch us forward and pursue that resurrection.
So true wealth is this philosophy that you've built your life around now. For someone hearing this for the first time, what does true wealth actually mean, and what does it not mean?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So true wealth it's not just counted in dollars, right? But true wealth is counted in the person that you become and the life that it allows you to live. And that is incredible because a lot of people would say, if you had freedom of time, maybe you just go and waste it on a beach somewhere, right? But if we're actually able to structure ourselves with purpose and with passion to create multiple streams of income, which does include the dollars, right? You've been able to do that. I've been able to do that. A lot of successful entrepreneurs who have taken action have been able to do so. If you're able to leverage that capacity and utilize that to free your time in order to become generous with your time, with your assets, with all of your talents, and then increase the value of your community and increase the value and the purpose in your life, that is true wealth.
So a lot of entrepreneurs are chasing money and then they realize it wasn't what they were really after. So how do you help people figure out that truism before they've spent decades chasing the wrong thing?
Yeah, and so many people do, and I have as well, right? I've chased the fancy cars, the fancy watches. I've made those decisions, right? And we all do, right? That's what you need to
Yep.
do. But this is precisely what my book, Old Wealth, New Wealth, True Wealth, is all about, right? So old wealth, as we describe in the book, is more of the long-term tax-advantaged wealth strategies. And I have a lot of old wealth, right? So real estate, whole life insurance, a lot of tax-advantaged long-term planning. And none of that's wrong necessarily, right? But that's solely focused on accumulation and long-term planning. And that's great. We need that, right? But there's something more. And then the new wealth is, exactly what you were mentioning, the flashy cars, the flashy watches, the moving fast, get rich quick schemes almost. And there's nothing wrong with, owning a nice car, owning a nice watch, right? But there's something beyond that, right? There's something beyond that. So true wealth then is the perfect marriage between the two, right? Leveraging the long-term planning and the passion and speed of new wealth in order to create multiple streams of income, which allow you to gain true wealth, which is the ownership of your time, ownership of your life, which is true capitalism, right? Owning real assets, which produce real income, which creates real freedom of time.
So, in this book that you wrote with Sharon Lechter, you're distinguishing between that old wealth, that new wealth, that true wealth. Why does that matter? Like, you explain what it is, but why does that matter?
It matters because we have, and I've explained this before, we have a generation that at least I'm witnessing that's getting lost, in their phone screens. They're getting lost in the messages that they're drowning in, right? They're surrounded with words. They're just drowning in words, but they're starving for truth, right? And true wealth is going to help people find that purpose. And capitalism is so focused on this, right? If we're able to create an abundance of wealth in the economy, then we're able to create jobs for people. We're able to create wealth for ourselves. We're able to create generational wealth for families, for legacies, right? And there's the key difference is that if you're focusing just on the watches, just on the cars, just on the short, flashy things, it'll be really fun for you in the moment, right? But it's all long term, which then of course falls into the old wealth concept as well, right? That it's, if you're intending to build a legacy for yourself, for your children, for your family, if you're intending to build a legacy and a name that lasts through history, then it goes so far beyond just the temporary pleasures. And a quote that I always go back to is, I believe it was John Paul II. He said, "The world offers you comfort, but we were not made for comfort. We were made for greatness," right? And so that call to greatness is achieved through ownership of your time. It's achieved through true wealth, as opposed to just the temporary, seeking comfort temporarily.
Yeah. And now you've built an impressive real estate portfolio. You got medical flex funds, restoration, townhomes, even a wellness resort in Colorado. So what's the common thread that ties all these together?
Yeah, so I wanted to study a particular business specifically. I was actually working with Josh McCallan up in New Jersey. He's the owner of Accountable Equity and the Capital Hacking podcast. I was his assistant while I was in college, and while I was working with him, I was using that as, paid mentorship almost, right? So I would ask him questions, and I would learn so much from all of the podcasts that I helped him produce from all of his guests. And I was able to leverage that information to move forward and acquire my first townhome portfolio out in Fort Worth. And since then, I've been able to scale the portfolio. My entrepreneur mind, right, has gone forward to build a few businesses and scale those businesses. And we're in the process, right, of creating the proper systems to be in place so that they can continue to scale at the capacity that they need to. But my focus has been real estate, because that is, arguably one of the most tax advantaged strategies to build long-term wealth. And that's my goal, right, is to continue my family legacy. And so that would be achieved through real estate, which is why I wanted to focus on real estate.
Well, in real estate development specifically, not just buy and holding, but real estate development can be stressful. It's capital intensive. It can be all consuming. So how do you keep your own true wealth in check while you're running these multiple ventures?
Oh, you caught me red-handed. It is very labor intensive. It's very stressful, right? I think really the key, and I've explained this to a lot of people, the key to building your businesses, the key to scaling, is to hire and outsource the necessary tasks to the experts, right? To the people that are experienced in the field, right? So I have general contractors with 40 plus years of experience that I leverage in order to scale my developments, in order to scale my businesses. I hire employees that are experts at marketing or at social media. I'm not going to put my time into those things because I know that's their expertise. I'm able to leverage their capacity and help that grow the brand, help that grow the business so much. And that is true capitalism, right? Creating jobs for people, creating opportunities for other people to utilize their expertise to grow the vision that I have set, right?
All right, we're going to get back to Nathan in just a moment. But first, the chances are someone's come to mind while you've been listening to this show today. I want you to forward this episode to them because the right idea at the right time can spark a breakthrough, and you might be the one who delivers it. Now, a word about something that's changed how I think about money and business cash flow and wealth, and that's something called Bank on Yourself. And it's appropriate that they're the sponsor for today's episode, given the nature of the conversation that I'm having with Nathan. I want you to imagine a proven strategy designed for entrepreneurs that lets you access capital when you need it without banks. Can I get an amen on that? Without gatekeepers, without tedious applications. This approach lets you let your money grow every year. It gives you liquidity for investments, for expansion, and it protects your savings from market shocks. And you can set your own terms for borrowing and repayment. You can maximize what you keep and keep your business moving forward with confidence. This is something that I've been doing since 2019, and in 2025. Not that what mine did is what yours is going to do, but I got a 22% return on what I was doing with this same methodology. Now, savvy entrepreneurs around the country can unlock this freedom, unlock financial freedom with this method. And if you want to learn how you can bank on yourself, then I want to invite you to go to therealjasonduncan.com/bank on yourself. And you can book a confidential session with a specialist, somebody that I trust, who can show you exactly how this strategy fits into your financial goals. That's therealjasonduncan.com/bank on yourself, and you can take charge of your financial future today. Now, let's get back to talking to Nathan about some wealth. Now, you're co-authoring this book with Sharon Lechter, who helped create one of the best-selling personal finance books in history, Rich Dad, Poor Dad. So how did that partnership come together? And then what surprised you about working with Sharon?
Absolutely. This is a great question as well. So my mind was open to financial literacy through Rich Dad, Poor Dad, as it was for the majority of the world, right? And so when I was reading, or after I had completed reading Rich Dad, Poor Dad and really obtained financial literacy to that capacity, I thought to myself, I would like to see where the source of this whole Rich Dad brand, the source of the whole Rich Dad, Poor Dad concept came from. So I found Sharon Lechter, and I got onto her website, and I reached out to her, and I gave her a short explanation of my story, of my near-death experience, how I've been able to leverage my near-death experience and the motivation in pursuing a life of excellence beyond that. And, the accomplishments I've had in business since then. And within a day, her team got back to me and we set up the next meetings. And it's been incredible because Sharon, mentorship with Sharon has really helped me understand, right? I wanted to write a book about my accident because it is a very, inspirational, motivational story, right? But that book was all about me, right? And so what I learned with working with Sharon is that writing is it's less about ego and more about stewardship, right? And that's what I wanted to, I guess that's how we've been able to construct this parable of the three brothers, so we have three brothers. One represents old wealth, one represents new wealth, one represents true wealth. And so it's a modern day parable on this whole story, which makes it even easier to relate to for the audience, for the readers, which that's exactly how, Rich Dad, Poor Dad was able to affect so many lives. Is everyone knows that they either have a rich dad or a poor dad, or they are the rich dad or the poor dad, right? So that's very relatable. So now they'll be able to relate to the three brothers, the old wealth, new wealth, and true wealth, those brothers, and see themselves in Cherry Creek Lodge, which is Sharon's location, her ranch, and that is actually the scenery of this entire book as well.
Now, you've said that identity drives wealth. So what do most entrepreneurs get wrong about who they think they need to become in order to be successful?
That's a great question. This is really based on taking action, right? A lot of people have the dream to become an entrepreneur, right? And they think that they can just keep dreaming and it'll come true someday. But what I always tell people is the difference between a dreamer and a successful entrepreneur is taking action, right? So,
Yep.
so it is of course necessary to learn, study, always dive into these books, these podcasts, all of the free content that is out there available for you to increase your knowledge, your personal net worth, your personal value, just by studying, right? So you increase your understanding, but then you have to be able to just take that understanding and take action, right? So that's what's going to hold back a dreamer from, a successful entrepreneur is being able to leverage the wisdom and the knowledge that you gain through a podcast like this, and then surround yourself with a network that's going to bring you to that highest potential, that highest potential good that you can become, and that will allow you to go forward and take action, and then it's a domino effect, right?
Nathan, what's something that you used to believe that you don't believe anymore?
Hmm. That I can rely on others to accomplish my own dreams. Right. I've invested passively into a couple deals, all of which the payments have stalled. I've relied on some other people to help me attempt to grow my personal brand, and none of those have come true, right? My disbursements were paused from all my passive investments. The people that I was relying upon to help me leverage my personal brand, which is me, my mission, right? They can't write my passion for me. I have to be the one to write it. And so one thing that I've learned through a lot of pain is the fact that I have to get it all done myself. Of course, once you've achieved the success through the constant grind and the grit to get it done yourself, that's when you're able to start employing people and you can show them the systems that they can take forward, which is, what I mentioned before. But that passive reliance on others to accomplish your own dream, it's not going to work.
So, the name of this show, of course, is The Root of All Success. So, I got to ask you some success questions. What do you believe has been your one key that unlocks success for you more than anything else?
That's a really good question. Of course, I think the number one thing that has allowed me to unlock success is my network, right? My desire to be around someone like yourself, around someone like Sharon Lechter. The most valuable dollars that I have spent have been the ones that I used to put me into the same rooms as people like Ken McElroy, like Sharon Lechter, as these same rooms with people that are such high level thinkers, being with Marcin Drodes, Nick Skalkos, these people that are such high level achievers and thinkers. If you're not surrounding yourself with these people, then you can't move forward with your own success. So I would say the biggest thing that I have done as a solopreneur to escape the solopreneur lifestyle and to fully accomplish the entrepreneurial lifestyle has been getting myself in the same rooms as high achievers, high level thinkers that have done what I want to do, right?
Okay. How do you how do you personally define that word success?
To me, success is, if I were to write a scene of success, it would be having a delicious steak dinner with my family around the dinner table every single night, and having that be a stress-free dinner, right? So every night we get to eat delicious food around our dinner table, and that is what I have achieved, right? I've been able to. We live in a beautiful area, and we get to go outdoors with our boys every day and play, and then we come home and we eat some delicious dinners around the dinner table every night. So to me, that is true wealth. To me, that is success, right? Because my passion is building my family legacy, and that is founded in my boys, that's founded in my relationship with my wife, and keeping that rooted in Christ is the only way to achieve success.
So, based on that definition, do you consider yourself successful?
I would consider myself successful as of now. Obviously, I'm just starting my career. I'm 26, and of course, working with Sharon, the brand is just on the launch pad right now. Of course, we're about to go out and start doing a lot of international speaking engagements and book tours, and I will continue to grow the brand. But I feel successful as of now because I'm able to eat dinner with my family around the dinner table every night.
That's awesome. All right. So as we close our conversation today, Nathan, I've got 3 rapid fire questions for you. Are you ready?
Let's do it.
All right. One book besides your own that shaped your thinking the most.
I think The Richest Man in Babylon was a really good book that helped me. If we're talking about mindset shift, that's a book that is a parable as well, but it really helps you have a mindset shift. That I really enjoyed that book, and I think that book helped me move forward and have a mindset shift around money and monetary wealth.
All right. Favorite place in the world to recharge and to reset?
I would say Lake Bled, Slovenia was just an unbelievably beautiful place to be. Very peaceful.
All right. And final one, if you could go back and have a conversation with that version of you lying in that hospital bed, what would you tell him?
I would just say, keep your mindset, right? Never stop, never give up, right? Just keep taking the next step. And that is what I did. And so I would tell myself to do it again.
Well, Nathan, congratulations on your success and your recovery. I mean, what's it been, 10 years since the accident?
10 years. Yeah. So we are officially publishing my book, Old Wealth, New Wealth, True Wealth, on January 23rd of 2026, which is 10 years to the date of when I was hit by the car and my life ended. Wow. So it's a very, very holistic day to be able to publish a international bestseller.
Or you could look at it as 10 years to the date from when your life actually began.
Amen. There we go.
Yeah. So congratulations on this. Looking forward to reading the book. I know anything Sharon does is top notch. She's a class act. And again, I'm so grateful to have you on the show. I'm glad that we got connected. People can get in touch with you at Nathan Barkocy on any platform, Instagram, LinkedIn, YouTube, Facebook, or X, or your website is nathanbarkocy.com. And the spelling of that is Barkocy for those that are listening. That's nathanbarkocy.com. Nathan, thank you so much for being here. Congratulations on your success. And thanks for being an inspiration to people all over the world about how you can recover from what would be a life-ending accident to turn it into something positive for the world. So congrats, man. Good on you.
I really appreciate it. And I'm so honored to be on this podcast with you, Jason. I appreciate what you're doing and the movement that you've started, and I'm grateful to be able to do so with you.
Well, there you have it, folks. Another successful entrepreneur, a young one, 26 years old, showing us what it's like to make a difference in the world and to build true wealth. Listen, I don't care where you are, what you're doing, how old you are, where you live, where you grew up, who your parents are, what limitations you have. Nathan's story, among many others that I've interviewed on this show, prove that none of that matters. All of those are starting points for something great. So listen, until you get hit at 60 miles an hour riding a bicycle, let's not talk about how bad things are for you. No matter where you're at right now, you can make it better. You can be better. And where does it start? It starts with your mindset. Just like he said in the book, The Richest Man in Babylon, which you should probably go read. I actually recommend listening to it. I listened to it and it's phenomenal. It's actually a pretty long book, longer than I thought it was going to be, but it's worth the listen. Go listen to that and you're going to really like it because it teaches you about how to get your mindset right. Because even if your body is in a coma, even if your body is flat on a bed, you can't move and you're paralyzed, your mindset is still under your own control. That's the one thing that God gave us supreme control over, and that's how we think. So use it the right way. Thank you for tuning in this week to hear me interview somebody. I want to encourage you to listen again next week when I interview yet another very successful person about his or her story of success. Until then, as always, I am the real Jason Duncan, and Jesus is King.
Attention business owners.
Attention business owners.
Feeling burnout from running your business? Uncertain if you're nearing burnout? Take our free 10-question business burnout test at businessburnouttest.com to discover where you stand. With just 10 quick questions, you'll learn how to immediately begin making changes to regain freedom and success. Cut your daily operations time in half. Improve your quality of life and prepare your business for your future exit without losing revenue or profit. Visit businessburnouttest.com now and take the test. Thank you for listening to another edition of The Root of All Success with the real Jason Duncan. If you've enjoyed this week's episode, visit therootofallsuccess.com to access the show notes and other helpful resources. Follow Jason on social media at The Real Jason Duncan. See you again next time here on The Root of All Success.